Welcome back to Odelia Vlogs. Today we can study Module 5. It is mainly focusing on human rights, and that's very important module for you. We can go to the contents today which I am going to teach are human rights and United Nations. These are the two topics we have to study today. First we can go to human rights. We can study the introduction to human rights, meaning, concept and development, and 3 generations of human rights. Human rights means the rights relating to life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual guaranteed by the Constitution or embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by the courts in India. Covenant means a treaty. International covenants, there are a lot of covenants we have to study here, and Constitution also has laid certain fundamental principles for us, and these are all enforceable by law, or it's called as binding documents. We can study the meaning and concept of human rights and its development. Human rights are rights inherited to all human beings from birth to death. He has full freedom and can enjoy all his basic rights. Human rights emerged after World War II. Government committed themselves to establish UN with the primary goal of supporting international peace and preventing conflicts. Member states of United Nations pledged to promote respect for human rights, because everywhere, because of the human war, people were suffering, and everywhere conflicts, and they were fed up, and the delegates from various states assembled at UN, and as a result of which United Nations established, and it was established under the leadership of the President Eleanor Roosevelt in 1947. We can study the 3 generations of human rights. First one is civil and political human rights, which is the first generation rights. It is also called as blue rights. It deals essentially with the liberty and participation in political life. Second one is economic, social and cultural rights, which is under the second generation right, and it is socio-economic human rights. It relates to the workplace, social security, family life, participation in cultural life, and access to housing, food, water, and healthcare, and also education. Third generation rights are the solidarity human rights, or it's also called as collective human rights. These are the rights that try to go beyond the framework of individual rights to focus on collective concepts such as community or people. For example, right to development, right to peace, right to healthy environment, these all come under solidarity rights. Next, we can study in detail about United Nations, its history and all. Human rights and United Nations, that's our topic. United Nations is headquartered in Midtown Manhattan, New York, United States. United Nations has 6 main organs: General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, Trusteeship Council, Secretariat, and the International Court of Justice. In San Francisco, delegates from various states who are the members of United Nations assembled between April 25 and June 26, 1945 to draft the Charter of a World Security Organization. As I told you earlier, that people were fed up of World War, the consequences and all. So, UN Charter was signed on 26th June 1945 in San Francisco, which is the founding document of the United Nations. Foundation of freedom, justice and peace in the world. That is what United Nations gives to us. United Nations General Assembly adopted UDHR in its 103rd meeting held in Paris on December 10, 1948, which was a milestone in the history of human rights that we can study in detail. We can now study role of UN Secretariat. That is one of the organ of United Nations. United Nations executive arm. Second one, it sets an agenda for United Nations decision-making bodies. Secretary General, appointed by General Assembly, is the head of United Nations Secretariat. The functions of UN Secretary are to administer operations initiated by United Nations deliberative organs, appoints head of peacekeeping operations, responsible for publishing all treaties and international agreements, conducts surveys and research, and operates political missions. Next, Economic and Social Council, that is also one of the organ of United Nations. It's the heart of United Nations system to advance three dimensions of sustainable development. We have already heard about sustainable development in module 1 detailedly. So, responsible for follow up to major United Nations conferences and summits. Next, central platform for fostering innovative thinking to achieve internationally agreed goals. Next, hold 4-week sessions in each year. The last one is annual meeting in April with finance ministers heading World Bank, IMF, etc. We had to study UN documents on human rights, and they are UDHR, which was found in 1948, ICESCR in 1966, ICCPR in 1966, UNESCO, UNICEF, WHO, and ILO, which we are going to study in detail. First one is UDHR, which is known as Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it is the foundation of international human rights law. It has been referred to as Humanity's Magna Carta by Eleanor Roosevelt, who chaired the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. It's a non-binding document, means it is not enforceable by law. It is just written and it has articles 1 to 30, and you have to study all these articles for your exam. ICESCR, that is the International Covenant on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights. It is a multilateral treaty adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on 16th December. The covenant is monitored by United Nations Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. It's adopted by many countries through optional protocols. Optional protocol means a side agreement. It's adopted by, that's what I said. Amendments are made through ratifications. Ratification means to make as a treaty, to bind it as a obliged factor. We should obey it legally. That's what ratification, and a treaty is signed there. ICESCR focuses on preserving and protecting the most basic economic, social, and cultural rights, including rights related to work in just and favorable conditions, to social protection, to an adequate standard of living, to get good health treatment, and for better education. Next, we can focus on ICCPR. ICCPR is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and it is an international treaty adopted in 1966. The UK agreed to follow ICCPR only in 1976. It is a binding document just like ICESCR, adopted by countries through ratification process. It enables people to enjoy a wide range of human rights, including freedom from torture, freedom of thought, religion and expression, equality and non discrimination, privacy, home, and family life. So, ICCPR is an international covenant which is a binding document just like ICESCR. Next is UNESCO. UNESCO means it's an abbreviation for United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, which was born on November 16, 1945 with 195 members and 8 associate members. UNESCO was the first UN agency to place the 1948 UDHR at the core of its action. Its mission is to build a culture of peace and to eradicate poverty. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. That's what UNESCO says. They should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. All human beings should act one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Next is UNICEF. UNICEF is United Nations Children's Fund, which is an agency of UN responsible for providing humanitarian development aid to children worldwide. It includes immunizations, just like different vaccines are given to children, polio vaccine, and disease prevention, administering treatment for children and mothers with HIV, etc. Next is WHO. WHO is World Health Organization, which is a specialized agency for international public health. It's headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, with 6 regional offices and 150 field offices worldwide. Next is ILO, the International Labour Organization. It is a United Nations agency devoted to promote social justice and internationally recognized human and labor rights. ILO brings together the governments of 187 member states to set labor standards, develop policies, and devise programs for promoting decent work for all men and women. This is a very important chapter. UN is very important for your exam. You have to study all these, very important. So if you have any doubts, you can comment in the comment box. Thank you so much, and we can come in the part 2, module 5 in the next session.